So today, class, on the saxophone, we are going to learn how to do articulation. So there are actually a lot of different kinds of articulation on the saxophone, but we are going to learn two. We're going to learn forward tonguing and backward tonguing. So we've already learned the first 5 notes on the saxophone, right? So C through G. So for the purpose of this exercise, we are just going to sit right on G. So that's going to be the note that we're using. So you're holding 1, 2, 3 at the top. So in order to do forward articulation, what we are going to do is the tip of the tongue is going to touch the tip of the reed, essentially. And you're going to make a sound that's like ta, 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 ta. So it's going to sound like this. And what I'm doing here is I'm continuing the air support all the way through so that my sound is supported and so that the articulation doesn't die off. So if I'm not using enough air support, it's going to sound like this. Kind of dies off and it doesn't have a lot of front to it, right? So we want to make sure that we're keeping that air support nice and firm and we're keeping our embouchure nice and firm as well. Okay, Jimmy, I want you to try that. Okay, so the first thing I noticed, right, is that we're not sitting up straight. So if we're not sitting up straight, we're not going to get a very good sound. And I'm standing, so if you want to stand, you're welcome to. Yeah, sure, go ahead, stand up. Okay, so now, good position, right, good embouchure, and yeah, very good. So the one thing I would say, right, is we got to continue to keep that air flowing all the way through. It's going to give you a lot more impact. I noticed you were hesitating a little bit when you were coming in. So just make sure that we're hearing that note in our head, we're hearing that G, and we're hearing that articulation as well. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is learn how to do backward tonguing. So backward tonguing is another type of articulation on the saxophone. And when you're doing forward tonguing, it is very staccato, right? So if you're going for a staccato type sound, staccatos in your music, you're going to want to use forward tonguing. So it goes like this. Right, so that's very articulate. When you're using backwards tonguing, instead of saying tuh, we're going to say like coo or goo. Kind of just depends what you want to use. So it's going to sound like this. And this is where the back of your tongue is going up instead of using the front of your tongue on the reed, right? And so this is going to create a lot more of a legato sound. So any kind of smooth legato passages that we want to use, we're going to use that backwards tonguing. So that goo, 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 goo. So say it with me. Goo, 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 goo. Good. Okay, so like this. Right? And so the difference is that's using tuh, and then you can see how much more legato that second one is than the first one. Okay, so Jimmy, I want you to just try that. We're starting on a G, and you are just going to do the backwards tonguing. Yeah, okay, very good. So that time, I noticed that your fingers weren't all the way down, so that right away is going to create, obviously, a different sound than a G, so we just want to make sure you've got those fingers slammed down. And I also noticed that you're holding this key right here and the register key, and we don't want to hold that down because instead of getting this low G, you're going to get this high G, which is good, right? Because you're going to need to know that. But for the purposes of this exercise, we're just going to stick on this low G. And what I'd say is you're still trying to accent with tuh, and that's if we're using forward tonguing, right? So when we're doing backwards tonguing, we want to use like a goo or a coo sound. So can you say that for me? Yeah, great. Okay, so now try it. Yeah, exactly. Perfect. Like I said, with the first one, we need a little bit more air support, and that's going to sink straight through. So for an exercise that I want you guys to do, so since we learned the first 5 notes, right, C through G, I want you guys to start on G and just work your way down to C, and you're just going to go, you're going to start with forward tonguing, 4 quarter notes, and then you're going to go to backward tonguing, 4 quarter notes. You're just going to switch back and forth between those, and you're going to do that 3 times, so it's going to sound like this. work your way all the way down the scale. And that's what I want you to do for your assignment. So great job, everybody. I'll see you next week.